Hi everybody, so today I'm going to go ahead and do my reflection on infant and toddler cognitive development. So starting off with an introduction, the purpose is just to reflect on observations and what we learned from the ELOF framework as well as the lesson 4 content, and the primary ELOF domain address is going to be cognition, specifically focusing on infants and toddlers. So to start off with, I'm going to explain a few cognitive skills that confirm my knowledge. So the first one that I dived into was active exploration and understanding causal relationships. So this pretty much just means that toddlers are starting to understand how things work, understanding cause and effect, as well as social and physical environments. So this aligns with the goal ITC2. So understanding how things work and just being natural scientists and testing the world in terms of cause and effect relationships. So if you drop your milk, then it's going to make a big mess. So at this age, they're starting to understand that, which confirm my knowledge. The second one is object permanence, which we talk a lot about in before 4 to 8 months, infants typically adhere to the out of sight, out of mind. But this ties into the cognition goal ITC4, where they recognize the stability of people and objects in their environment. So they start to progress from object permanence to understand memory, and this is when their memory and recognition of object stability starts to happen in their subdomain. So that's going to be the second one. And then the third one is children as theory builders and natural scientists. So kind of how we talked about in the previous two slides, they're starting to understand cause and effect and why things happen. So this ties into what we talked about in lesson 4 and in the ELOF domains about testing theories, guesses, and possible explanations through observation, exploration. And this is when they really start to theory build and just testing in general. And then going into insights that change my perspective. The first one is just going to be the sophistication of causal reasoning in toddlers. So as they begin to go into toddlerhood, they understand cause and effect on a more deeper relationship. So they can make judgments about causal relationships even without seeing a specific object interact with it previously. So they're now able to understand things as shown in our module 4 content. This was similar to what I've known, but it did change my perspective with them not seeing it before. They're still able to understand what's going to happen next, which is shown on the right. The next one was the early emergence of mathematical skills, or thinking. So this changed my perspective because this starts a lot earlier than I had previously thought. So infants as young as 5 months can start to see numbers and distinguish after 6 months old larger sets of objects. So comparing 4 to 8, which is something that I didn't previously know. This also connects to the ELOF connection in infant and toddlers, showing that they develop a sense of number and quantity. So choosing 3 crackers over 2 crackers starts to show their quantity comprehension. And I had a slight idea about that, but I didn't realize that it tied so deeply into mathematical thinking. So the next one that changed my perspective was motor-based future planning in infancy. So planning their motor movements. So an example they gave was infant grabbing a spoon differently depending how they're going to eat it. So it's interesting to see that they're developing motor skills that are pertaining to specific examples or specific times in their daily routine before verbal planning emerges. So that was cool to learn about as well. And then going into my synthesis, so overall, just seeing the infant and toddler as a scientific learner was very interesting to see. I know at this time they're learning a lot, and exploring a lot, but I guess I didn't realize how none of this is random play, but really directed towards exploration based on observations. They're also just really leaning into problem solving and having logical reasoning for cause and effect patterns, and then really focusing in on their memory and learning was really fascinating to learn about. So one more thing was their integration of symbolic play and early math. So how I mentioned, they're going from using objects symbolically to represent other things, so such as black standing in for train tracks. So symbolic representation is really important for things that are developing like language and math. So as well as just understanding that this is our main mechanism for understanding the world. So us being really intentional during their daily routines and talking through them is really important. So diving into that, a reflection on this was just the impact on practice and interaction. So how I just mentioned, making sure that we're being intentional and not just modeling and demonstrating, but really leaning in on that questioning mind and the open-ended questions. And those are really going to get toddlers and infants to really get those gears moving and just work on their problem solving and stuff like that. So um, another thing was just an adjusted approach. So just narrating how I mentioned. So saying first we put on this and then we put on this helps their memory develop. So even in simple things in their daily life, such as that, ensuring that we have an active role in just narrating for them. And then just looking for signs of hypothesis during their free time. So when they drop something, asking them questions and allowing them to really think outside the box is some things that I can do during my application to really help the children improve their cognitive skills. So I added my resources at the end, and that should be all. Thank you.